Welcome to the Filmed Live Musicals podcast, a podcast about stage musicals that have been legally filmed and publicly distributed. The Filmed Live Musicals website contains information on nearly 200 musicals that have been captured live. Check it out at filmedlivemusicals.com. And now, on with the show. Welcome to episode 34 of the Filmed Live Musicals podcast. I'm your host, Luisa Lyons, and my guest today is Jean-Paul Yovanoff, the artistic director of Musical Theatre Radio and co-founder of the virtual theatre, the Jill Edmund Theatre. Welcome, Jean-Paul.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. I'm very excited to chat with you today about the work that you're doing in the world of virtual theatre. It's very exciting. But to start us off, what made you fall in love with musical theatre?
I didn't really have a choice. I always tell this story because my mom tells it. I've been doing theater since before I was born. Because when my mom was pregnant with me, they worked at the company called Kodak, my dad and my mom. They put on shows there. So while she was pregnant with me, they were rehearsing Oklahoma. So I've been, on stage since, pre-birth. And I didn't really have a choice. So once I was born, what happens is during rehearsals, she said that she put me underneath the piano during rehearsals. And she would also say I kicked along in her stomach to the music. I don't know if that's true, but it makes for a great story.
That is a great story. And when you say Kodak, do you mean the photo film company?
Yeah, my dad worked at Kodak here in Toronto, the film company, and they used to have lots of extracurricular stuff for their employees. They'd put on shows and things like that. So, yeah, I've been involved or watching theater since, before I was born.
Oh, that is such a great story. I love the image of you as a little baby under the piano, just absorbing all that music.
It was a grand piano, not an upright, just to let everybody know. So, my parents weren't that cruel.
What a great image. Did you grow up watching filmed theater?
Honestly, no, not very much. I went to a lot of theater growing up. That was just something that was a part of our family's life. We would go. Um, we didn't go to a lot because we just couldn't afford it, I'll be honest. But every year we would go to Stratford here in Canada and see two shows. We'd go see a matinee, we'd go for dinner, and then we'd go see a night show. And I saw so much Gilbert and Sullivan over that time. And it was just ingrained in the way I was is going to see live theater.
More recently, have you been watching theater on screen?
I've been trying to. Again, I run a radio station, so that takes up 24/7 of my life. Because when I'm watching a musical on screen, I'm not listening to a cast recording. So I honestly, I try. I try to watch as much as I can.
What led to your interest in cast recordings?
Again, I think just growing up with theater, just being a part of it. It's not what I wanted to do. I didn't decide to be in musical theater until I was like 17. Before that, I wanted to fly a helicopter or, work with computers. And because of my eyes, I couldn't fly helicopters. And because I'm terrible at the computer, I couldn't go into that. So in grade 12, I did Little Shop of Horrors and I went, you know what, this is what I want to do. I want to perform. So I changed everything and started taking vocal music and dance lessons in grade 12. And then, went to Sheridan College for musical theater performance. And that's where it took off from there.
Am I remembering this correctly? Is Sheridan College the place that started Come From Away?
Exactly. Way after I was there. But
Yeah.
yes, it's well renowned for its performance and now for, you know, helping nurture new musicals.
What was it when you did Little Shop of Horrors? You played Mr. Mushnick, right?
Yes, I did.
What
Yeah.
was it about that experience that made you want to pursue it professionally?
I don't know. It just, there was something about it that clicked and went, you know what? You've been watching theater and enjoying theater and musicals all your life. Now you found out you can sing and dance and I knew I could, act a bit. Went, you know what? Let's do this. Let's give it a try. My parents were completely supportive. They said, hey, if this is what you want to do, go for it. Right. So I just went for it. It was something inside me, just went, let's do it.
That's really beautiful. And I'm so glad that your parents were supportive of that dream.
I know it. So have I. My whole family's done weird stuff. My sister, she went into politics, so she manages political campaigns across Canada. My other sister's an archaeologist, and I'm in theater. So, there's nothing that connects any of us really, except for maybe the politics and theater, because let's be honest, that's all performance and acting.
And eventually they'll be tied in with archaeology too.
At some point, I'll maybe write an archaeological musical and see what happens.
Dinners with your family must be so much fun. What a range of like intelligent, fascinating areas that you all work in.
It's insane. It's totally entirely insane the way we all think. As my parents, if they should have been hippies, they weren't, but they're very open and didn't live this hippie lifestyle, but they believed that we could do whatever we wanted. And we could just talk about whatever we wanted. Nothing is off the table. You want to talk about death, we'll talk about death. You want to talk about politics, we'll talk about politics. You want to talk about anything that comes to mind, it's fair game to talk about it, because nothing is sacred in our house. It's terrible as that may sound, but nothing is sacred, and we can talk about whatever we want and say whatever we want.
You want to sing and dance? You go ahead and sing and dance.
Exactly. If it makes you, they want you to be happy. My parents wanted us to be happy and doing what we want to do, and they let us do that, which was fantastic.
Oh, that's really beautiful. I love that. So what led you to create musical theater radio?
So, as some people might not realize, there's not a lot of money in theater. Surprise, surprise. I know.
Really?
You get into the business and you expect to be rich and famous. So I got out of Sheridan and I went to York University after that, and I graduated with a degree. And I realized I need to make money. So I actually got a job as a DJ. So I DJ'd for about 13 years, a mobile DJ, which is performance, but it's not in theater. And then I started a few other businesses. And about 3 years ago, the business I was trying, it wasn't working. So what you do is you pivot. And then I pivoted again. And then I pivoted again. And when you pivot 4 times, you've just created a square and you're back to where you begin. And I thought, you know what? I'm not happy. I'm not making any money. Let's just forget it. Let's just drop it. And that's one of the hardest things to do in business and in life. And sometimes it's that moment when you realize it's not working and you have to give up. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with stopping what you're doing because it's not working. So I decided, you know what, let's go back to my musical theater roots. I hadn't done it for a while, and let's start a radio station. And I did that, and now I am making no money, but I'm happy. So it's I've done half of this stuff.
You were fulfilling the hippie prophecy of your parents.
Exactly. You know what? As long as I'm happy and I'm doing stuff and I can cover my bills and all that fun stuff, I'm good. But yeah, I decided to start a radio station called Musical Theater Radio.
What were the challenges in creating a radio station?
I had all the music, which was nice. I have so many shows on LP and CD and cassette and things like that. Finding the content wasn't the problem. The biggest problem is finding an audience. Like anything, whether you're writing a musical or you are building a movie or anything, when you're starting a business, it's finding the audience and being honest with yourself. Because we all say in business, we want everybody to be our clients. That's not realistic. Let's be honest. You're not going to have everybody, but that's what I wanted. And then I realized that's not working per se. So I decided to focus more being the industry musical station. So my mandate is to play, classics and rare stuff. So, you get the Hamiltons, you get the Come From a Ways, you get the Be More Chills, but you also get that rare 1963 Broadway flop, but had a great cast recording. So I'll play that stuff. But our mandate is also to help promote new creators and their works. So we play about 150 plus new works that you might not have heard of. So, you know what? When you listen to our station, you're going to hear a little bit of everything. And that's not for everybody, but that's okay. So if you want to hear something new, this is the place to tune into.
What have been some of your favorite new works of recent times?
Whew. People ask me that, and I'm totally honest in saying I don't remember. When you listen to a cast recording a day, they all start to blur together. Um, but there's some great stuff. I'm also working with NYU's Tisch Musical Theater Writing Program, and I've heard some great stuff come out of there. I'm thinking about directing a show called For Show, which is based on show choir. So there's some great stuff there um, that we're in talks of working with. Trying to think some of the new stuff.
Or it can be,
It's
let's open it up. How about do you have recordings that you go back to or that are like comfort food for you?
Oh, for sure. There are shows that I totally love in cast recordings. Five Guys Named Mo is one of my favorites. Chess, Hello Again. A lot of the stuff I like to listen to is not mainstream. It's that weird off the beaten path type stuff.
Are you a collector that has like multiple versions of the same show? Like Chess, there's been a bazillion different cast recordings.
I do have multiple. I must have like 7 versions of Evita, um, like Spanish and the new Broadway and the old Broadway and the original Broadway and the London cast and the it just I do. It's because of the radio station, of course. I want to give a variety of stuff, but yeah, being a collector is terrible on the pocketbook, and I have so many versions of everything, but I enjoy them all. I love them. They're all different.
I'm curious. Last year I interviewed Robert Sokol, who is a writer in San Francisco,
Mhm.
and he is also a cast recording collector. And we talked about the physical space to store albums and CDs and
Yeah.
and how digital is changing all of that. And now we need terabytes of storage space, virtual storage space to have all this content. So I'm curious what your setup is.
Both. You have to, it's yes, the digital version is so much easier to store. I have bookshelves of, I don't know, 450 LPs. But I love the LPs because a lot of them have never been digitized and never got a CD version of them. That is the only recording of them. The only digitized versions is when I digitize them myself for the radio station. And you're going to hear stuff, rare stuff, Canadian stuff for sure, because I'm here in Toronto, Canada. I have so many shows that nobody's ever heard of. And they've never been digitized. So I love the feel of a physical thing, the CD or the tape or the LP. I understand the point of, you know, MP3s or the digitized version. It's just easier to market, easier to get out to people, easier to store. But I'm old school. Of course, I grew up with it. I grew up with LPs and CDs and tapes. So for me, I love the tangible, physical. I also love books. I can't read books on a Kindle or a computer screen or my phone or whatever. Give me paper. I'm old school.
There's nothing better than turning a page in a book.
There isn't. There isn't. I don't care on the computer if you hear that whoosh, flip that they make the fake flipping sound of a page. It's not the same. It's not the same. Plus, I can drop my book and I don't care. It's not going to break.
And something I miss with the move to digitization, which is ironic because we're going to talk about a virtual theater very soon, but something I miss is in a CD or an LP, the liner notes. There's like all this extra information that you can get that we don't really get anymore with digital. And same with DVDs. I really
Mm.
miss the extras that you get in a DVD. There's like director's commentary or behind the scenes footage, and we're not getting that anymore with the virtual content.
The nice thing is, I had a conversation with Robbie Rozelle from Broadway Records. I don't know, about a month or so ago from my podcast, and I asked that same question, and they when you get the digitized version from Broadway Records, you get an not MP3, a PDF with the same type of liner notes and pictures and everything. So you do technically get the same content as the back of an LP, or when the gatefold, you open it up and you've got the twice size record. So you do get the same content. It's just not the same. It's like when you pull out a record, you put it on, you can look at it while you're listening to it. It's just different with a PDF. Again, maybe I'm just old. Maybe I'm just old school that way. But yeah, there is something lost. There's something lost when you can't touch it. You have to open it up on your computer while you're listening.
So I think this is a funny roundabout way to get to the Jill Edmund Theatre.
Mm-hmm.
For folks that haven't heard of it yet, can you tell us what it is, and then we'll get into the history of it?
For sure. The Jill Edmund Virtual Theatre is my partner, Lori Gladowski, and my attempt to replicate the real world of theater in the virtual world. Everybody knows when the pandemic happened, theater closed. And it's still closed. There's still, in Canada here, theaters are still closed. I went back for a month and then they closed again. But so everybody went online and went to Zoom and YouTube Live, but it's not the same. It's not the same experience. So I tried to replicate that experience of being able to meet people and talk to people, and that experience of interaction and intimacy online.
And so what led to the creation of this theatre?
So about a month after, so everything closed down in March of, what was it, 2020, and we went into pandemic
So long
mode.
ago, and yet yesterday.
I know it feels like forever ago, but yeah, it wasn't, and it was. So it closed down in March. My friend Jared Goldsmith introduced me to this platform called Remo, um, which was used for events and corporate and conferences and things like that. So he introduced me that early April. And he started doing events on it and holding corporate events and things like that. And I looked at it, and basically it's set up like the real world. If you imagine tables and chairs in a real world, and you can sit down at them, and you can hop from table to table, and instead of Zoom where you have 150 heads, you're only talking to 6 heads or 4 or 8 or whatever the table is, which creates an intimate atmosphere. And you can actually have conversations, and like in the real world, you go from one table, you move to another table, and you talk with different people. And I looked at this and went, this can be completely utilized for theater. And nobody using the platform at the time was artistic. My friend Jared, he plays music, so he understood it some, but everybody else using the platform was from an event and a corporate world. And I looked at him and went, no, I'm going to use it as a theater. And in June, we put on our first, pre Jill Edmond concept. I partnered up with Stuart Brayson in the UK, who created From Here to Eternity with Sir Tim Rice. And we decided to hold a one night only event. So basically, we got the cast and the creatives and the directors of From Here to Eternity together, and we did a one night only where we got to talk to them and meet them and have songs performed. And it was hosted by Simon Agrief from the UK. He runs, what is it, SimG Productions, a radio, not radio, a record label. He hosted it. I worked the back end of it, and we did it. It was one of the first ones to do anything like this during the pandemic, and it was a great success. We learned so much from it. We did 4 more. We used the theater, the pre-theater concept, and did Everybody's Talking About Jamie. We did Saturday Night.
One of my favorite new musicals of recent times. I
It
love
was
that
great.
show so much.
We had 2 or 3 Jamies on. We had the creators. We had performers perform songs from it. We also did a 10th anniversary, basically reunion of Saturday Night Fever from the UK, because Simon was in it, so he knew everybody. We had performances again, talks, and then the 4th one we did was Come From Away. So we had again the creatives, the producers. We had 4 cast members from 4 different companies. So the UK cast, Canadian cast, the New York cast, and the touring cast. And we had a couple of the real people from the characters show up. And it was fantastic. And then we did all this in the first 6 months of the pandemic. Um, we refined it, used the theater. We did virtual stage dooring because that's a one thing that was missed, right? Being able to come to the stage door and meeting the performers and stuff like that. We did it in a virtual setting. We replicated it, and we learned from it. And after that, we had the theater was that kind of set the concept from it. I joined NAMT, which is the National Alliance for Musical Theater. Met Lori Glodowski there. We just happened to hit it off. We did fantastic. Just our minds and the way we think meshed perfectly. And I mentioned to her, I said the idea, I'm thinking about building a virtual theater. What do you think of it? She loved it. And the Jill Edmund Virtual Theatre was born from there.
Okay, I have so many questions now.
Yep.
So rewinding,
Yep.
I think it's really fascinating that 3 of the 4 shows that you first worked with were all shows that had been filmed live. From Here to Eternity, Everybody's
Yep.
Talking About Jamie, and Come From Away have all had
Yep.
pro shots that have been released, and different strategies too. From Here to Eternity is available on demand on Broadway HD. Everybody's Talking About Jamie was only released in the cinemas, and sadly you can't watch it anymore. Desperately want that to be re-released. And Come From Away, obviously filmed during the pandemic and then released on Apple TV. So I think that's really, it speaks to the openness of those producers and the creative teams to embrace technology for their productions.
And when we were doing our things, each one of those that you just talked about were at different stages. From Here to Eternity had already been recorded. Jamie was, when we were doing that, the one night only thing, was just pre being released. And then Come From Away hadn't been at that point recorded. So it was great that we were able to get all 3 of those, 3 of the 4 of them. And Saturday Night Fever is already a movie. So at that point.
Yes, of course. So I can kind of picture what it would look like to mingle in the lobby. Is it kind of like the breakout rooms in Zoom where you chat with people?
The concept is similar, and in the fact that you are only talking with a small group of people. A breakout room is the equivalent of a table. But it's the atmosphere. When you look at the layout of it, it looks like the floor of a lobby. And that's what the difference is. It's not just heads on a screen. You can actually see the tables where people are sitting. There's a group of 6 tables, and you can see on the screen beside you at that table, other people are sitting there, and you can move from table to table, just like in real life. And there's multiple floors. So you can have up to 1,000 people in the theater with multiple floors, 100 people per floor. So what we did with when we were doing our virtual stage dooring, we put different people on different floors. So we had the creatives and an actor on one floor, and then if you wanted to go see somebody else, you went to a different floor. The floors look all the same, but you can spread the people out. You can go visit different floors to talk to different people. We also did the NYU Tisch Musical Theater Writing Program's final presentation. So all the students got to put their presentations on, and we assigned each floor to a different group of students. So if you wanted to go visit and talk with different students, you go to a different floor and you can sit down and talk with them as well. It's quite the experience, and we can send out messages into the theater. So just let people know, hey, 15 minutes, the show's going to start. You can get the bell ringing just like in real world to let you know show's going to start in 5 minutes. We have a virtual TV in the right-hand corner, just like in the real world, where you're putting advertisements and what's coming up. It's such a similar experience to being in the real world. And what happens when the show starts? The lights go down and we go up on stage. And unlike in the real world, we can mute you. So your cameras and microphones are muted. We tell people you can eat as much as you want, turn on all your cell phones, let the babies cry. We're okay with that. because it's a virtual theater. So
This is fascinating. And what does this stage look like? Does it look
it
like if I
essentially,
wanted to screen Come From Away, for example,
yep.
in this virtual theater, and then you just like show the pro shot, but for an event where you've got a concert of everyone from Come From Away and the real life people, what does it look like? Does it look like Zoom with different boxes?
It kind of does. There's only a finite amount of stuff you can do with virtual online. There it is different boxes. Um, but there's it's just a different type of atmosphere because the only people you see are the people on stage. Unlike in Zoom, you see everybody and you can highlight and spotlight, but you only see the people on stage and they can come on and off. So we say when you turn off your camera and your microphone, you're going in the wings. And then you turn your camera and microphone, you're coming back on stage. It's got that same type of feel to it. Which it's fun when I'm working with corporate people. They don't understand it, but when I get a theater person and I say this, they're like, "Oh yeah, I totally get that," and it makes such a difference when I'm working with theater people. So it is essentially, let's be honest, there's only so much you can do with the virtual world, and it does kind of look like Zoom. You still have boxes and things like that, but the feel is different, and the experience is different.
And I think as virtual reality headsets become more commercially available and easier to use and available to the average person, I think the potential for that is really exciting. The British musical The Grinning Man was
Mhm.
captured in VR by he played Gollum in the Lord of the Rings movies.
Oh, yeah, I don't remember his
I'm
name.
like,
Yeah.
apologies to that incredible artist. I am blanking on your name, but it was The Grinning Man was the first musical to be captured in full in VR.
Wow.
The entire show, and it hasn't been released yet. And I can imagine like pairing that capture with your theater is very exciting. There are the possibilities are very exciting.
Yeah. And we've created the theater so we could live stream as well. And so, which pairs perfectly with how we met. Yeah, it's you can live stream into the theater and still get the reactions and there's the chat box as well. There's a little emoji so you can clap. Um, which just floats up the side, which is a nice thing as a performer. You can see people's, reactions. Um, it's an exciting time. Will it replace live theater? No, of course not. It never will. But it's there to supplement and enhance and open the opportunity for people who can't get to the theater or don't want to risk going out in the pandemic or live in Bangladesh or in Spain or Chile or wherever who want to experience theater but can't get to where it is.
That's something I keep harping on about. What I've loved about the pandemic is that I've had access to work in the Philippines and
Yes.
Russia and like all across the world, which I wouldn't have even known about before.
Exactly. Exactly. There's so much great work out there that we just don't have an opportunity to experience. And that's what I did with the radio station. Um, I wanted to make sure that we had a global coverage on the station. So we don't just play stuff from Broadway or the West End or Canada, the United States or the UK. There's always Australia. We play stuff from Singapore. We play stuff from Germany. I'll play stuff from anywhere in the world, English or not. There's a number of shows. I have no idea what they're saying, but you know what? You still get the experience and the feeling with the music of what it is. And musical theater isn't just English centric, right? It's in Germany, it's in Singapore, it's in Mandarin, it's in Japanese, it's in language.
It's in
And I
Korea, it's
wanted
in Russia, it's in
exactly. It's everywhere. And that's why I want to do the radio station and the Jill Edmund Virtual Theater, because it can be global and bring us all together and give experiences to people in South Korea to experience the North American experience, and people in North America to try and experience the South African experience. Because once we all start to get to experience other people's culture and the way they do musical theater, which I think you and I had a discussion, I can't remember during my podcast or off the podcast, about how musicals are slightly different in different countries, the way they're presented, and we need to experience that, which will bring us all closer together in the long run.
Yes. Peace, love, and musicals.
Exactly.
The hippie agenda is back.
Yep. Completely. Totally.
It always comes back. I'm curious who Jill Edmond is or was. Who's the theater named after?
I will give you the official answer. So every great theater has a ghost, and Jill Edmond is our ghost. So when you go to the theater, you might experience the ghost, who sometimes shows up, sometimes doesn't. When we finish our website, you'll be able to go to it and you'll see the complete backstory of Jill Edmond, the ghost, the virtual ghost of our theater.
I love that so much. And I hope, and this, you are welcome to steal this, and if you don't already have it, I hope you have a ghost light burning on your website somewhere perpetually for the virtual theater.
We haven't got that yet, but it's still being built. So but yes, Jill Edmond is the name. We named it after the ghost of our theater.
Okay, this is very intriguing. I can't wait to see your website.
That's the thing. I don't want to give too much away because the website explains, because there's a whole part where the story behind Jill Edmond and how she gets named and who she is and all that sort of thing. And because we did that because every great theater has a ghost of some kind. And like I said, if you go to an event, sometimes she's there and she'll be sitting at a table, and it's something to experience. It's so hard to explain a ghost in a virtual theater. You're like, how is that possible? It's possible. We made it possible.
You truly have thought of everything. You are making this a true experience of live theater online. I love that so much.
Exactly. Sometimes I worry what's in my head. It's just some of the stuff that I come up with.
I love that so much. What do you see as the future of virtual theater?
It's going to be, it will probably end up being VR at some point, obviously. We're not quite there yet, either technology wise or having access to it. Our internet has to be upgraded. My parents, for example, they live in the country. They were using dial-up until like 3 years ago.
Oh.
And they still can't get very good reception. And I think the pandemic's been great for that, to show the inequality of internet access throughout the world. So the future of streamed musicals and things like that, we need to take a step back before we even think about that, is getting the access to everybody and to have just to be on the internet. And get everybody some internet. So it's hard to think about that, but I think once everybody has access to the internet, it'll explode and make that a lot easier. I don't know if that helps or answers the question, but
no, I think that's really important. It's something that's often overlooked. The economic and technological barriers. We talk about, and I've been talking a lot recently with the Consortium of American Stream Theater about how streaming theater can make theater more accessible, but it's not accessible if you don't have access to a computer and you don't have access to the internet. And like you say, there are so many people, I mean, in the United States alone, who, so many educators learned that their kids are having to go to McDonald's to get free Wi-Fi. Like there are so many people that just don't have access. And the shift in our lifetimes, that the internet is becoming a human right.
Yeah, you can't live without it. It's just a fact of life. So I know the governments well, I know our government is working on that, trying to get it out to everybody. Because yeah, there are points in Canada where there's nothing. Like, and my parents they live an hour north of Toronto, and they still, because they live in the just in the middle of nowhere, and they also live in a valley, which really doesn't help because there's no cell phone service in their house either. But that has nothing to do with anything else but just geographic. But there are other people in northern Ontario or northern Canada who just can't get it. But they've got is it Elon Musk's satellite links, I think, in the sky. It's starting. But to get to where we want to with the live stream theater and things like that, we can't really even think about that almost until we fix that other stuff. That it, you can't run until you walk. And so we're still crawling, unfortunately, internet wise.
Very super important. I'm so glad that you raised that. This has been super fascinating. I cannot wait to see more about the Jill Edmund Theatre. Before we finish up today, I have a few quick questions for you that I ask all my guests. You don't need to think about them too hard. Whatever comes to mind, and there are no wrong answers. So to start off with, the can of worms question: what is your favorite musical?
I will cop out and say mine.
Yes.
it's I wrote the musical Paradise Island back in the day. It's about a guy who goes down to a tropical island and his misadventures down there over 24 hours. It's just fun. It's not brilliant. It's just fun. Audience loved it. It ran for 3 weeks at the community theater company that put it on. It was only supposed to run for 2, but it worked so well that we extended it a week. Yeah, I'm going to say mine. So,
is there a cast recording that we could listen to?
There is a studio cast recording that does play on the radio station. It is available if anybody ever wants to put it on. It's never been done outside of me, but
never say never. Well, your next
exactly.
you film it.
I did record it back in the day. I have no idea where it is. It's on a cassette somewhere. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Antiquated technology.
Isn't it incredible how quickly that has happened? Like, when I started college, there were still floppy disks.
Yes.
How very quickly they became obsolete. It makes me laugh. Do you have a favorite filmed live musical?
I'm going to go, again, it's going to be a bit of a cop-out, the Into the Woods that everybody, I think, started with, in 87. That was probably the first time I ever saw a live stage musical on film. I'd seen filmed musicals, Hello Dolly and Funny Thing Happened the Way of the Form, et cetera, et cetera. But I think Into the Woods was the first time I'd seen theater recorded. And yeah, I'm going to have to go with that one. I know it's going to be an answer for a lot of people, but it's the first one I saw. So
I think it's a really important one historically because to my knowledge, I think it's the first Broadway musical that was made commercially available in a way that was very accessible. There had been filmed musicals before it, but they were limited to a very specific audience. Like Showgirl in Etobicoke, Canada, in Toronto, was shown in like 1961, but only if you had a very early version of pay TV where you literally put money into the little box next to your television. So you got to see Carol Channing and Showgirl if you happen to be those 75,000 people in Etobicoke. And later there was pay TV with Sophisticated Ladies was shown on Showtime. But I think Into the Woods was the first filmed live musical to be released on VHS and then later DVD.
Actually, I have to change my answer. I just completely forgot, and I love this show. There was a live filmed version of The Boys from Syracuse done in Stratford. So good. Comfior was in it, which people know from movies and things like that. Goldie Simple, Gerantwin Davies. Um, so good. It's one of my favorite musicals, The Boys from
I don't
Syracuse.
know this one. You've just added another one to my list.
Yes, it's CBC did it. The Canadian Broadcasting Corporation recorded a bunch of their stuff. I don't know where it is. We recorded it off a TV onto a VHS way back in the whenever it came out. I watched it, I don't know how many times, but I don't even know where I could find it. I don't even know if you can find it in the archives anywhere. So it's,
Ooh.
yeah.
And that's one that's
I'll,
it's not a show that's often produced. So I think
no,
having a
it's
capture
not.
of it is super important.
And I love that show. The music's so good. Rogers and Hart, one of my favorite, maybe my favorite writing team of all time, because I just love their stuff.
I cannot wait to go look that up. We're going to find it.
Okay.
It's out there somewhere.
I'll see what I can do to help you find it.
Excellent. We'll team up. We'll take over the world.
Exactly.
So a filmed live musical, it's not exactly a pure stage show and it's not exactly a movie. So what should we call it?
It's not a movie. It's not a stage show. I have no idea. I'll be honest with you. Not a clue. There are smarter people than me that probably can come up with something like that.
Excellent answer.
Yeah, I got nothing.
Where do you stand on bootlegs?
I'm not a fan of them only because I don't like watching them. It's just not good. The quality, I don't even care how good the quality is. It's still not good. It's shaky. The sound quality is terrible. I'm not a fan of them. I just not. I know people are going to watch them, and it will open up musicals to people that they don't know about. Yeah, I'm just not a fan of them.
Fair enough. What do you wish had been filmed?
Shows that will never be done ever again. Just from newer stuff like King Kong and Spider-Man. Shows that will never be on stage ever again. Because you can get other stuff that maybe we lost because of the performers, we lost that the quality of that show, but the show itself will be done. But just something that shows that will never that are flops or failures but deserve to be viewed. You know what my philosophy is, everything deserves to be watched, good or bad. And good or bad is subjective unto itself. Yeah, that's a whole thing. Another thing I'd get into about good or bad, but shows that will probably never get put on again. Though I've always wanted, I work for a theater company at York University. It's like a 40-seat little black box, and I so want to put Spider-Man in it. A community theater version of Spider-Man. You're going to swing very much? No. But come on, it would be so much fun to do. Just swinging the 30 feet back and forth. But I'll never get the rights to it. Or put a 60-foot gorilla in a 62 high seat theater. But it'd be fun. But that's my answer. Just shows that will never get put on again.
I really love that, because it's not just about preserving the history of the hits. It can give us a history of what didn't succeed and maybe give us an insight as to why. And also, if I have learned anything in life, it's that there is an audience for everything.
Totally and entirely. That's why I hate when people ask me about my opinions on shows when I go see them. What did you think? It doesn't matter what I think. Just go see it. Because my opinion is completely different than yours. I've seen shows that, they loved and I hated, or they hated, I loved. It doesn't matter what I think. I can tell you, why I think it is, but still go see it. Support the theater and make your own decision.
Yes, I love that. What would you like to see filmed in the future?
Outside of my show, Um, uh,
Coming soon to the Jill Edmund Theatre.
exactly. Oh, I would love that. Um, what? I don't think there's not just one. I think they all need to be preserved. Uh, I yeah, there is no one that I want to see. Um, just do them all. Our technology now is allowing us to do that. It doesn't take much to set up a few cameras, patch into the soundboard, um, and do it. With the Jill Edmond, we've done a number of kids shows. We did some classes. What they did, they put their laptop, open it up, pointed the camera at it, and did it. Was the quality great of the sound or the visual? No, but you know what? Now it exists, and the richer you are, and the simpler technology is, just buy the cameras, set them up in the theaters permanently, and do it.
Yes.
It's pretty simple.
I am so for this. It's starting to happen. Like the Z in Virginia Beach has, they have when they were built, they put cameras into the structure of the theater, and now every show that goes into that theater can be filmed, and they have like a team of people that can help you make it happen. And I think it's crazy at this point that Broadway, particularly didn't pivot during the past couple of years and get that setup happening while everything was dark. And imagine what ticket sales they could have recouped if they had been able to capture shows during that magical brief period when we were able to open without fear of the variant. So,
Yep.
yeah.
They can make money off of it, even if the theaters are not full, and it's not a deterrent. We've proved with bootlegs, people will still go see the shows even if they've seen the bootleg version. We just need to change around our way of thinking. The barriers are twofold: economic, because I know the theater we wanted, our little 40-seat theater, we would love to put cameras in there and do streaming. It's an economic thing, but it's more than the economics. It's the mental. It's the people's, the way they think. It's the old guard still. I'm not young, but it's mental. It's how young you are and forward thinking you are mentally, whether you're 90 or you're 9 years old. If just use your brain. That's all I can say is just think about it and just take a risk. Try something. I love that. I wouldn't do the theater, and I wouldn't be doing the virtual theater, and I wouldn't be doing the radio station if I just, actually thought about it and realized I'm going to make no money. It's going to be a lot of work. But just try it. Experiment. Do it.
That is a perfect note to end on. Where can we find you online?
If you go to musicaltheaterradio.com, you can find the radio station. The website for the Jill Edmond isn't quite finished. Should be finished by next week. This is the middle of January of 2022, so it'll be up very soon. Find me on social media at MTR_tweets. I talk to everybody. That's how I met you, and that's how I meet everybody. But yeah, that's how you can find us: the website and Twitter.
Perfect. And we'll have links to all of that in the show notes. Jean-Paul, thank you so much for being my guest today, and we'll catch you soon.
Thank you very much for having me on. It's been a fantastic pleasure.
The Filmed Live Musicals podcast is created and edited by your host, Luisa Lyons, with thanks to our wonderful patrons, Josh Brandon, Belinda Broido, Elliot Charles, Rachel Esteban, Mercedes Esteban Lyons, Rusty Fox, James T. Lane, Allison Matthews, Al Monaco, David Negrin, Amy Penn, Jesse Rabinowitz and Brenda Goodman, David and Catherine Rabinowitz, Joe Tillotson, and Beck Twist for financially supporting the site. FilmedLiveMusicals.com is the most comprehensive list of film stage musicals. You can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. If you would like early access to this very podcast, early access to site content, the full weekly newsletter with info on upcoming streams, and exclusive access to the streaming calendar, become a Filmed Live Musicals patron for as little as $3 US a month. And if you're outside the US, you can sign up in your local currency. Visit www.filmedlivemusicals.com to learn more. If you like what you hear, please leave a review through the Rate This Podcast link in the show notes. I hope you've enjoyed this episode, and thanks for listening.